Sim Update 5 for Microsoft Flight Simulator is now with us, and according to the release notes, it contains significant performance improvements. So in this video, I wanted to show some side-by-side footage to compare identical settings on Sim Update 4 and Sim Update 5 while I play in VR on my Valve Index. I'm running the game on an RTX 3080, and as always, my full PC specs can be found in the description below. So let's take a look.
Immersed Robot.
Hello everyone, welcome to Immersed Robot. So Sim Update 5's performance improvements in Microsoft Flight Simulator here, and I wanted to see how much of an impact they'd have in VR, because this is something that I've been excited to try actually since I heard that they were doing these performance improvements, and of course in VR it's particularly important in order to maintain those frame rates. So in this initial quick look, I'm focusing on 3 different areas: London, Paris and then Devil's Tower in the US. So I went in and recorded some preliminary footage in preparation a few days ago before the update dropped, and that's the footage on the left, the Sim Update 4 footage, and then I've got the Sim Update 5 footage on the right. And all the settings in SteamVR and in game are identical, just so we can make a direct comparison. And I'll probably try to do at least one more video in the next week or so on this update once I've had a chance to dial in my settings and change a few things just to really focus in and get the experience running a little bit better. But for now, I'm running SteamVR at 100%, 90Hz in the Valve Index with motion smoothing enabled, although I do experiment with that briefly a little bit later on in this video. In game, I'm running at 80% resolution with most of my other settings on low, but again, this is really just to do a direct comparison with Sim Update 5, so individual settings don't matter too much for this video. And with that resolution scaling at 80% in game, I do like to increase that a little bit, so that's probably something that I'll be focusing on over the next few days too. So just for this initial test with the settings I've got, we're probably best to look at the frame timings on the FPS VR overlay, as this will probably highlight the improvements the best at this stage. And as you can see, the frame timings in Sim Update 5 are definitely improved over Update 4. And there also seems to be less fluctuations and more consistent performance overall, which is fantastic news. That's one of the things which really stuck out to me with Microsoft Flight Simulator over the months that I've been playing it, is the fluctuations and the inconsistent performance. So just getting a little bit more consistency is fantastic. But while I was flying around London, I looked at the frame timings and I wondered if I was able to maintain 60 FPS rather than the 45 FPS we projected from 90. So I wondered if I could switch the index up to 120Hz and try to maintain 60 FPS reprojected. And I tried it briefly in London, but I wasn't quite able to maintain that consistently. Although it was very close, and I think that if you change some of the settings a little bit, refine some of the settings in the game, then you could probably get it to run at 60 FPS locked, but again, that's something I'll need to experiment with a little bit more. Paris was a very similar story too. The frame timings have been noticeably improved compared with the previous update, and again, more consistent performance. And you really do notice the consistency the most in VR. There are far fewer of those harsh dropped frames that you might be used to if you played this game in VR at various settings really. Again, I tried 60 FPS reprojected from 120Hz, but again, in Paris it still wasn't able to maintain it consistently, unfortunately. And then Devil's Tower in the US, it's obviously a more rural area, so performance is noticeably improved here anyway, but you can still see a clear improvement over the previous update. And in fact, the frame timings were looking so good in this area that I decided to turn off motion smoothing and try native 80Hz in my Valve Index to see if we could get to those magical native frame rate. And I did find that I was able to maintain 80 frames per second for the most part. Again, there are drops here and there, and you can see that here in this footage, but yeah, it was a fantastic experience to see that in a native frame rate in the headset in this game, because I don't know if I've done that before. But yeah, it's fantastic to see that, and it felt really good to play the game in that way. So again, with more refinement in the settings, you could probably get a little bit more consistent performance at that frame rate too in various areas. So overall, we can clearly see that there's been some significant improvement improvements to performance, it's going to take some more time to experiment with all the in-game and SteamVR settings to really get the best out of the game, but I'll try my best to do that over the next few days and will report back as well. But for now, that's pretty much it for this very quick initial look. Please do take a moment to like this video if you found it useful, and I'll see you next time. Please consider supporting Immersed Robot on Patreon, or joining the Discord, or following me on Twitter, or better yet, all of the above. Links in the description below.